Hi, everyone, and welcome to another 4D Method 4D user group meeting. Today is June 18th, 2025. This is meeting number 80, fighting number 80. All right, so today on the agenda, we'll talk a little bit again about what the 4D Method user group is. We'll talk about the upcoming user group presentations. Always a lot of great content coming through. Calendars filling up again. We'll get a review of what's been going on in the weekly happy hours. We'll talk to Kirk Brooks about that, the host of the 4D Happy Hour. We'll then hand it over to Ricardo Mello this time around, since Jim is on vacation, probably doing something fun, and get some news from 4D. Then we'll take a look at some of the recent 4D blog articles and highlights. Normally those highlight features upcoming in the next R release. Those are always interesting. And then we'll talk to Ad about one of the recent tech notes that came out in the knowledge base. And finally, we'll have our special presentation from Bruno Raeymaekers. He's becoming a regular customer here. He's back to show us some interesting code where he's manipulating lists in 4D using objects, language objects. So my name is Brent Raymond. I host these online user group meetings. I've been doing 4D since as long as I can remember, sometimes in my sleep. But I like to see what other people are doing with 4D, and that's kind of the origin of how we started 4D Method, the 4D Method user group. The website can be found at 4dmethod.com, and I can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. Um, yeah, I'm a career 4D developer. I've worked in all kinds of arenas and projects and various aeons of 4D development times, from the early times to the current times, the Orta, all the way back to the 90s. And I like to see what people are doing with their applications. We do these user group meetings to just bring together scattered worldwide community, share new techniques, see where 4D is deployed in the world. I just talked to another company in the last month where it's like, wow, just never even realized that's a company that was using 4D. And this is a great place. This and the happy hour is a great place for companies to find 4D development support. So this is a wonderful place to show your skills and participate and communicate with the stakeholders out there who use 4D applications to run their businesses. And it's a good place for all of us, including customers, to see what can be done with 4D. Always great ideas in the demonstrations, presentations that people give here. So yeah, use 4D Method as your 4D support community, and it's a great place to find other people to work with. All of our meetings are live, bumps and bruises included. So that's part of the fun here. On our upcoming schedule for our next meetings, we've got the next one on August 6th. Milan Adamov is going to come back and present, we've got a couple of part twos, continuations of earlier presentations. Milan presented, as you may remember, in 2024 on master action building with GitHub. So being able to have a project, a repository in GitHub, and use actions, GitHub actions, to build the projects automatically. And there's a lot of complications that he's spent a lot of time figuring out so that it's easier for the rest of us. And this time he's back to do the same thing with application signing. Then on November 5th, we'll have Ricardo Mello coming back to give us a part two of the awesome demo that he did earlier this year. If you haven't seen that, go watch it immediately. It's okay if you leave. But no, it was very interesting to see how he's been able to interact with AI and LLMs within 4D applications to do interesting things like comment, just simple things like commenting a piece of code, exposing the AI features to your users, and give us a little glimpse of how they're integrating 4D with AI and in the next versions and upcoming features that I'm sure that will be coming. So you can see all of these upcoming presentations on the 4DMethod website on the schedule tab. You can also see a couple of dates that we've got open for 2026. These are placeholders, if nothing else. So if you've got an idea and you'd like to present on a day other than or a week other than January 14th or March 4th, just reach out and we can move things around to make it work for everybody's schedule. Or you can just record a short demo. Not everyone likes to do it live. So sometimes if you just record it and you can edit to your heart's content and make it look, delete all the parts, all the fun parts, I think. But if you want to pre-record something, we can also share it on the 4DMethod user group website. So those are also great ways to just show everybody what you're working on and some cool techniques that you've developed recently. So yeah, so that's what's coming up on the schedule. Please do reach out. This is your group, great place to, this is a platform to show off all the great things that you are doing, even if it's just showing your application, product that you're trying to sell with your 4D application that you sell. Just give us a tour of what you're working on. Right. So in other news, I just wanted to highlight, it's sad news, but also happy. Our own Edgar Hammond, who works with me at the Art Institute of Chicago Museum, is retiring. And just wanted to say congratulations for 11 successful and enjoyable years at the museum working together with Ed. He's worked on many pivotal projects for us in that time, including API integrations, monitoring and administration features for our platform, and of course, all kinds of user requested development. But most of all, he's been a great workmate and confidant, and you'll be missed. And hopefully, we will still see you around in the 4D developer community, Ed.
I promise not to go away.
Well, that's good. But
I just don't want to work for you anymore.
it is it is part of the pleasure and the curse of working at the museum. You get the museum, but you have to work with me. So my apologies. So yeah, anyways, but that brings me to the next slide, which is to say we now have a full-time developer position open at the Art Institute of Chicago, which is it's one of the best art museums in the world. I think it's a great place to work. That's why I've been there, boy, it's going on like 18 years now. We keep a very active development schedule, so if you like developing, we are always hands-on. I mean, we've got all kinds of interesting projects lined up to work on. The museum has great work-life balance and benefits. It's a very stable environment to do fun things with 4D and fun things with working, as we mentioned, with APIs. We do a lot of integrations with other platforms across the museum, and the museum is always looking for new interface, new ways to access the data and share the art collection data with the public. So yeah, if you're interested, please do look at the jobs page on the 4DMethod site. I have all the information there. There's also a link to apply directly to on the website at the museum. And if you do choose to apply, please do let me know, and I'll make sure to highlight your resume as somebody who's from this development community. Unfortunately, I did ask. I wanted to be able to say anybody from anywhere can apply. Unfortunately, you do have to reside in the U.S. So my apologies. Didn't make the rules. So, anyways, yeah, great position. We're gonna miss Ed there, and don't worry. You'll have big shoes to fill. Ed promised to leave them. You don't have to wear them. You can wear your own shoes. So, yeah, you probably don't want to. Anyways, so enough of that. I'm going to kick it over now to Kirk to talk a little bit about the weekly happy hour, 4D happy hour that he hosts on Zoom each week.
Thank you, Brent. And hello to everybody there. I was just taking a quick look at the gallery, and I see that pretty much all the faces there have been to happy hour at least once. And of course, many of you are the long-term supporters that really kind of make the wheels go round over there. So I just popped the invitation into chat. If anybody wants to bookmark that, you can get it either through the website or directly there. As Brent mentioned, and I think pretty much everybody knows, this is a nice casual drop in, drop out meeting to just come and totally geek out predominantly about 4D. Occasionally we talk about some other things. I try to keep it tech related, but it's nice in that first we meet every week. We meet every Friday. We've been doing it for, gosh, certainly 5 years now, a little over. And it's really one of the few opportunities you have to actually just participate in a conversation with people about 4D. Come and talk about the business side of 4D. Come and talk about the code side of 4D. The best thing we do, I think, is just share screens and look at how other people handle stuff, and what your workflow is, what your code looks like, what the problems are that you're trying to solve, and that is really a great experience. If you don't have very much of that, then bring something over sometime and share it, or just come and hang out. It's always nice to have new people, and look forward to seeing you there. Oh, and I gotta say, my personal congratulations to Ed for surviving the Art Institute as you did. You did so with grace and acquitted yourself well. And I hope you'll continue to pop into happy hour, even if you're not a full-time dev anymore or something, because it's always nice when you're there. You always have great things to contribute. So
I appreciate that. Thanks.
yeah.
All right.
All right. Back to you, Brent. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirk. Yep, there's always a lot of solo developers out there. I think that tends to be pretty common in the 4D community over the years. And I would just, again, reinforce that the happy hour is a great way to break down those walls. And don't be intimidated if you're not used to palling around with other great 4D developers. They're generally friendly and always interested in what you're doing. So,
Well, and you don't have to be great. And in fact, it's great is not great happens sometimes. Just don't think you have to come in being an expert.
That's right. It's there's very seldom are there hurt feelings, I think.
Good
So,
point.
all right. Well, thanks again for hosting that every week. And yeah, now we'll scoot on over to Ricardo Mello and to give us a little bit of news about what's happening with 4D right now.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Brent. Thank you again for the invitation.
Mhm.
Uh,
Uh,
his talk today. I'm not sure if Bruno is still in Europe. Are you still in Europe, Bruno?
I think that
I
was a
think, yeah.
thumbs
Okay,
up.
yes,
Yep.
perfect. Good to see you, Kirk.
Yes, I
You're
sure am.
thumbs up, yeah. Nice. Good to see Kirk as well, and congratulations, Ed, for your work in the Art Institute. And I hope you're going to enjoy a lot retirement. Yeah, pop up a few times. The 4D community still needs you. So Jim is on vacation, very well deserved vacation. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible here, just to move the ball quickly to Bruno. So next one, Brent,
Mhm.
is coming. This is about the release webinar. Um, I want to make sure, I mean, my team asked me to make sure you guys understand from our perspective. This is a big thing for us lately. We have been releasing a webinar every time that an our release comes out, pretty much. And we do in, 5 sessions in, pretty much 4 languages and 5 sections. We do in Japanese, we do in German, we're doing in French, we're doing English for both Europeans and American audience, North Americans. So it is quite a bit of an effort from the whole team and everybody input. So we really appreciate all the attendance and to see all you guys there. We're going to have a lot of news this time, including, and as you were going to start to see from now on, a lot of AI, right? A lot of AI. We're going to come and show what we are calling the 4D AI kit, which is starting to build up for V21. It's really worth and but not only AI, we're going to have a lot of features that are coming, and including the TCP IP protocol management, the 4D View Pro with import callbacks. If you are using that type of thing, that could be incredibly useful. And the 4D Codely Pro as well. As you probably know, we are ready for production time. So we want the community to think this is not a separate product. This is inside 4D now. Every time that you have 4D, you have Codely Studio available for you, the Codely Studio Pro. So it is one product, one thing, all integrated. Codely doesn't make any sense without 4D, and it's absolutely embedded on it. So it is in all your installations. And I think we're going to be keeping, there's quite a bit of an attention to Codely Pro in the next webinar as well. Yeah, register now is coming. Go, next one, please, Brent.
Mhm.
Oh, I think it's going to be a little bit of a repetition of it. Yeah, there we go. There you go, a list. I'll let you sink a little bit the ideas, but pretty full package with goodies, and you have the website on the bottom, which is started today, as it says that there. I really recommend do a great job, and we changed the format. I don't know if you guys noticed, but now we have some real examples. Ed is there to show real examples during the webinars as well. It's a great experience, and we fully appreciate your support on it. Next one, Brent, please.
Oh, okay. I think that kicks over to the blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Ricardo. Yeah, R9 is coming out soon, and it's got all kinds of good features leaning into the TCP new classes. R9 actually has a listener. So R8 had the client TCP classes, and R9 has the listener class. So now you can build your whole own from whichever perspective that you need to. You can serve TCP calls. You can also call them, and they're all re-engineered for the modern language, 4D language, as opposed to the old Internet Commands plugin. Um, so that's very interesting, and plus all the new AI kit features in R9. The and naturally, in the 4D blog, there's a great article there for showing off the new class for handling incoming TCP connections. So if that is something you're interested in, it's great for low-level integrations. Say you're needing to tie in with Internet of Things kind of view where you're talking directly to processing machines and that sort of thing. This ought to get your attention. So there's a great blog article on that, and also in R9, 20 R9, there's a new feature, new extension of the session handling in 4D, where you can create a one-time passcode for reaching out to third parties for validating accounts and validating a user profile. So there's a really good demonstration of how to use those new features that are coming out in R9 for handling one-time passcodes. Yeah, so always good stuff on the blog and always good stuff in the knowledge base. Just going to hand it over to Ad to talk about one of the recent TechNode articles that came out there.
Thanks, Brent. Hi, everyone. So this is probably a good handout from the last section, which is the highlight of the blog post that covers the R9 features that deals with TCP listening. So for this particular tech note, it's sort of an evolution, right, with the migration of the features from 4DIC to the native functionality. We're slowly moving everything now natively, starting from the mail features now is TCP. And for this particular tech node, the title's a little ambiguous. I'm sorry about that. But it's really focusing on sending TCP data data through TCP. And if you open up a tech node and the demo, you'll find that it's only kind of cover half of it, which is the other half that does the listening. We're still using the 4D internet command, mostly due to the version that we were using to create this tech node. And we didn't want to jump ahead and covers the beta features in 20R9. Therefore, you'll find some of the old implementation that deals with the listening of the data. But the main core part of it is for the sending. Anwar is one of our tech support engineer that put together sort of an introductory content for this feature. And again, a lot of these reasoning behind the new implementation is because we want to be able to utilize these features in a more preemptive approach, with the TCP and all of the mail features that was in 4DIC. It was still running everything in cooperative. So with all of these new changes, you'll be able to utilize multi-threaded programming, and the way that the classes is composed of multiple handler and events. I think it will help you with the programming more elegantly, as well as the how you would modularize your code better. So yeah, definitely take a look at it. Again, the majority of the content here is still very straightforward, very simple. It's kind of up to you now to take it up to the next level of what you're trying to do with the feature. Now, there might be a follow-up, obviously, with the R9 that just came out with the TCP listening. There'll probably be a follow-up tech note from one of our tech support engineers. Possible it could be Anwar as well that covers that particular feature. So yeah, keep an eye out, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver that content real soon. Okay,
Great.
that's it for me, guys.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, another big part of the new features is that they're asynchronous as well, so they're all non-blocking, which I think was a consideration with the older commands, and so they do a good job in the tech note to explore how that's different, how the asynchronous aspect works is a change, a welcome change. So yeah, thanks, Ed. All right. Yeah, and now to our main topic here. We've got Bruno Raeymaekers joining us from Nazaré, Portugal. It's Bruno's third group presentation. The first time around in 2016, he shared a list box component for setting up and maintaining list boxes. And then in 2024, Bruno presented on full database insight through the lens of a single method. And what a method it was. And yeah, so that was interesting, if for no other reason, just to see how you can build a whole interface through code. Yep, and Bruno's had a career working in the Belgian travel industry and for both of Belgium's nuclear plants. Since then, he's developed applications for HBO Latin America and QMed in Florida. And then he retired in 2021. Apparently, our own Edgar is following in his steps. See, you can still present after you retire 3 times. And he's currently still consulting and traveling between the US and Europe. So welcome back, Bruno. Thanks for another great presentation.
Thank you, Brent. Hello, everybody. Like Brent already said, I've been doing 4D, I think, since 1992, version 3. So, and to tell the truth, basically, I think I'm loving doing 4D more and more with every year that passes, because 4D just becomes so much better every year that I simply can't stop developing. Now, the thing and the reason we are here today is something that I started, basically, I think it was in 2018. Basically, the idea was, let's make or expand on the 4D lists, because at that moment at QMed, we had a need to put a little bit more information behind behind certain list items. So what we did was we created something that we called table-based lists. All the lists were in one table, and we created basically 3 fields in that table. We called them item extra 1, item extra 2, item extra 3. And that allowed us to basically get some more data behind every list items that you could then use to steer your programming to go this way or the other way. Of course, if you do something with 3 fields in the database, the next thing that happens is that you need actually 4 or 5, or you need even more, because at a certain moment we said, okay, wouldn't it be nice that we can put an object behind all this? At that moment, it was too early to already start using the objects as they are today, but what we decided to do was we hooked up a text field to every list item, and what you put in there was just a JSON text, and then you parsed the text, and you had basically an object connected to every list item if you wanted that. And why did we do that? Because we actually have a use case to do that, and I'll tell a little bit more about that later. So this project was basically started, like I said, 2018. I picked it up a couple of times, pulled it back down. Why? Because when you're full-time developing already, you don't necessarily have time to do much side projects. But now that I'm retired and I have 3 working days of the week available, I try to pick up all those projects that are half done, and I'm trying to finish them. And that's what results in today's demo. I'm going to share my screen now. I hope it's not too small or too big for everybody.
Looks good.
Looks good now? Okay. So basically, I'm demoing this client server, and I'll explain later why. When we talk about where are these lists stored. So I'm going to just start the application, and I'm going to start with the editor that actually maintains those lists. Now, what you see here is basically a bare bones list that comes straight out of 4D. So there is a method that exports the 4D list to a JSON object, and I use that JSON object to basically present this information. And if you're interested, after this meeting, you can go to Git, and I put a Word document there that should be open. And that basically, that Word document tells you a little bit about how that one object that holds all the lists, how that is constructed. So basically, you have one strange guy here that has some setup data, and ultimately an object called a collection of lists that holds basically a list of all the lists. And then every list has a reference. First list is reference 1, the second list reference 2, and so on. And then for all the list items, you have an attribute called list ref 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that holds all the information about any list item. So when I'm talking about the list, that's this part. When I'm talking about list items, that's this part. Right? So right now, what you see is just the same bare bones thing like what you can do in 4D, except maybe you have a filter thing here, so if that makes it easier to find lists. Later on, you will see we can not only do lists, you can also do menus with this thing, because a menu basically is nothing else but a list. So you can see, give me all my menus, and you have menus too. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just demo what you, at this point, even without going into expanding on the list items or the list itself, what you could already do with this list. So we created basically a small widget that you can use to present the information in the list. So basically, this is just a standard 4D dropdown, which presents, and this list doesn't come from 4D. This is basically the list. I think it's this one that you see here, right? Now, that is if you want to use the form object, the standard form object from 4D. That has nothing to do with the widget. That's just standard behavior, but you use the list, not the 4D list, but the list of objects. This is the replacement, basically, where you have the same list, and you can make selections from that list, but you can expand on this within the widget. So this here, we just selected an item. I'm going to select an item now, and when I go back, I present already the selected item in the list, right? Here we go a little bit further. You have the list, but you can filter on that list. Whatever you select goes through. Now, this is all, if that is the widget that comes with the component that uses the list in the object. But you can also use the widget directly with a collection. So this, you will see this list doesn't exist in the object, but I just feed a collection into the widget. So you can use the widget not only for the lists that you already composed, but also for collections that you built on the fly. And I'll show you the code behind this thing right away. Then if you go multi-selection, you can do multiple selections. And then the result of your selection is returned, right? I can do the same thing, but then with feedback already. If you go back, so your selected items are highlighted. Some people don't like to do the selections like, hey, basically when you just have to tap out of the widget, and that makes it select the list. For people who don't like that, they can say, yeah, but I like to have a select button to tell the widget that I'm done, and then you select that way. You can do more. Yeah, you can basically configure that widget the way you want it. You can set up a different separator if you want, if you have multiple selection, if you want to have it as an underscore instead of a comma, you just tell that to the widget. Some people like to select things with checkboxes. Same thing. If you like a column header to say, okay, this is what you're selecting here, you can do that too. Also works with an autocomplete. So I have this list configured for this thing. So let's say I want to select this item from the list, or not from the list. I want to type ahead to work on that thing, and I start typing damaged. I just enter DA, and the moment it only finds one option out of your list, it selects that automatically. And then ultimately, what you can also do, you can use an entire list box to make a selection, to return your selection from the widget. Now I'm going to demo this because this is basically my testing of that widget. Now you all know that in components you don't have any data. So basically what I'm doing right now, I'm going to load a text file. From that text file, I just construct a collection. And then the widget takes over and does all the rest. So basically what we're looking at here is a collection of 96,000 addresses, basically. And I configured it that I want to select using checkboxes. And it's configured that whatever you select, it returns the last name. So it should return Dodson and Martin in this case, like Dodson and Martin. So this is basically just a widget that comes with a component that you can use to present or select from your lists, the list that you created in this list edit. Okay, then I told you from the beginning, or you wanted something more on the list than just a list with items. So what I already did with this list, I already created this list, but if you want to create a list, you just say add list. And if you want to create a new item, you just say add item, new item, and you have a new item. But now I can continue that way. So I have my item here. I can start connecting things to that item, right? So I'm gonna create a new attribute, attribute 1, and I'm going to say this is just text. I can also create another new attribute, number. But to make it more interesting, I'm going to say this is an object, and this is now an object. So now, of course, you're not going to type your object in here. You should just double click on that line. Now you can start building an object for that object. $15. And if you want object level 2, you can create another object within that object, and so on and so on. Or you can also say, this object is actually a collection. And I'm gonna start adding and you get the gist, right? Okay. So I return here. Now I have my object. I have an object connected to this list item from that particular list. Now, why would you do that? That is entirely up to you. I mean, like I said, we basically have a use case where we use this object as an object that steers completely a report generator. So the object has all the information that you need to create a report, starting from a selection or a collection or an item selection of 100,000 records. And the end result needs to be a View Pro document that you can export to Excel. So the end step of the report generator is the View Pro, and then within View Pro, you can decide whatever you want to do with it. So all the things that you need to set up that report, and we have built an interface to create that object, is stored in that current table-based list that I talked to you about earlier. So this is the same principle. You have just an object connected to an item of a list. Now, what is the list in that case? The list can be, for instance, customer reports. The item can be yearly sales. And then the setup of that report is in the object connected to yearly sales, and so on. So this allows you to put whatever data that you want in connection with a list item altogether. So if I save now, okay, and I bring it back up, I think I was here. You can go back and you see how that object looks like. Okay, now the same thing, or as you can connect objects or attributes to list items, you can do the same thing to the list itself. So here you already see that these are all attributes that are connected to the list, what you do for the same reason. And also here you can go on and deeper and deeper and deeper to put more and more information or connect more and more information to that list. I already said, there's one more thing. There's another thing here that you say, okay, I have a list here, but what I want as a developer, that is that I'm going to set up that list, and every time we add an item to that list, I have a number of attributes that I want to connect to every item of that list. Right? So I call that mandatory attributes to the existing list items. Mandatory attribute. 1. Okay. I'm going to say this is a number. A mandatory attribute. And this is, for instance, the date. So every time that I now add an item to that list, those mandatory items are already pre-populated and you just have to give it a value. And you can still add regular items or regular attributes too. So the non-mandatory. Okay, so the only thing that I wanted to demonstrate is there is ways to influence what attributes you connect to list items. Now these list items now all have this mandatory attribute. Since the moment I created a mandatory attribute on the list level. Now, once we are here, we can go and create menus. Let's say my menu 3. And I'm saying it's not a list, but it is a menu. But you see now what happened is that because I created a menu, the thing automatically created a number of mandatory items, attributes for the future items to this menu. So, and you know already what it is. This is related to the shortcut that you want to connect to the menu, the menu parameter, for the action that you want to connect to the menu, eventually a for the access group. So everybody that is in that group has access to that function or that menu item or not. Or if you want to build your own access groups, you can put that in here. Okay, so if I add an item now, menu 1, and I say, what do I want to do here? I want to show the clipboard, and everybody has access to it. Return, okay. Now the component has functions to, now I'll demo it right away, to basically build your 4D menu from this menu and then work with it. And I'll do it right away. Basically, if I go to the menus here, and let me first maybe show the code. So basically the only thing I do, I call this method as often as I need menus in the menu, items in the menu bar, basically, right? So I'm using here menu 1, menu 2. For this menu 1 looks like this. Menu 2 looks like this. And they all do kind of different things. But if I run this method, here I have now menu 1, menu 2. Why do you see here test menu 2? Because you can, sometimes you don't necessarily want the name you gave to your list to be the label that you see in your menu. So you can change your menu label right when you create the menu layout. If you don't put a label, it just uses the name of the. And then here you can start using the menu, I think. Okay, this one says clipboard. Okay. So basically you tell the menu system to execute a standard 4D menu action, or you tell the menu to basically act on the parameter. So basically your parameter, what you entered as the menu parameter is returned by the menu function, and then you just have your case statement in your form to basically act upon it. Oops. So basically what you do in your form to act on the menu selection, you would just say, okay, if the user has no access, then you just say whatever you want to say, put out here, or you have no access, or you get back the menu parameter as you set it up in the menu, or it executes for the menu action. Okay. And the same way you can also do a pop-up menu. Okay. That's fine. So basically, this is that second menu where this one is grayed out because that one had a 4D group associated with it, and I am not a member of that group. So basically, you can have pretty much the same functionality that what you have with regular 4D menus. But we only use the 4D parameter, the menu parameters to steer what you are to do, the 4D actions, and the access method that you use. And you can connect one like that. No, I didn't set anything up with shortcuts, but you can connect shortcuts to your menu. Now, one more thing. Where is this object that basically does everything? Where is that stored? You have two ways of doing it. By default, it's stored in a file next to your database file, right? So a JSON text file next to your database. Or you can say, we only use a method, but in that case, you need to give the name of a host method in your database that gives me back the JSON text file, or that saves the JSON text file that I give to that method. And where you save it, that's up to you then. Any questions so far? Because it's awfully silent there.
What's that hide item attributes page 1?
Okay. It's basically you can configure when you toggle that switch, you either when you see the editor by default like this, or you see it like this. So basically you see the attributes of the item that is selected or not.
See.
Right? Now for a regular menu doesn't, like for a regular list, it doesn't make much sense to have this open because they, by default, they don't have any attributes. So that's why I basically gave the option to make it disappear or not. And you can basically resize this part to what you want to.
Now, are you using these lists as in some cases as values for field entry or
Yep.
yeah.
That was the idea of the widget that I showed you.
Mhm.
That's where you can so you, basically you can attach the widget. I was going to show you the code behind that widget, how that works. Now here I'm using the whole system compiled, so I can show you. But let me bring up the component itself. You're familiar with that. So here we again have that adjustments list. And then I have
And when you're storing the choice, are you storing the text version of the item name?
give me 1 second here.
Mhm.
Okay, we're back to where we were, but I need to actually open. You said, what do you say? Can you repeat, Ben?
Oh,
So basically, this is a standard for the drop-down list, right? This object. So what I do for that one is very simple. So I create a new 4D list in this case. I say this is a component function, this to 4D list. And I say it is that list with that name. It needs to go into that 4D list. And that true or false thing is just how you want to see it sorted. Sorted by description or sorted by order, right? And then I basically set that, I put that list in the form object. And then here I say form adjustment types. That is basically the source of that list.
cool.
Okay. Now that is for the 4D drop-down list. If you want to use the widget drop-down list, then it kind of goes this way. So the only thing that you need to do is you call that widget with an object. And yeah, here basically you see how old this thing already is because I'm still using OB setters to do it. That was before the dot notation, right? But the only thing that LOA that this function requires is a form attribute called widget select param. And the minimum that it needs to have is a list attribute and a source attribute. The list attribute says that's the name of the list. And the source attribute says, okay, where do you want that drop down to appear? What I'm saying is basically below this form object.
Gotcha.
Right?
Mhm.
So if you run that thing, that's what you get. Now, what was the difference with this list where I said, okay, this is not a list that I have in the list object. what you get if you make your resolution so high, you don't see any forms anymore. And if you look at this, the only difference here is that instead of giving it a list name, I give it a collection. So basically you can construct any collection within your code and then use the widget to have a drop-down selection from that collection. Okay, and then all the rest that I'm showing here is basically the same thing, except that I keep building on that object. So basically, if you give it this attribute, that means that you're going to pre-populate, and this attribute, this value is basically a value that I already have, which is the value of this variable that's going to be used to pre-populate the list when you call the widget, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is if you want to have a filter for the whole list, okay, you just say, okay, I want to have the filter active, yes. That's all you need to do, and then you have the filter action on that list. You can also say auto select one, and let me next to each other. So by default, what I'm doing here is just I select from a list, right? And I can filter the list, but when I end up with only one, bad example, also bad example, AO, nothing happens, even though I only have one selection left. If you activate, and I'm going to do one more thing, now to get out of this list, you either use your tab key or you click outside of the list to make no selection. If you activate these two, and I'm going to auto select, but now my widget will be a model form dialog box, meaning I cannot click outside of it. I need to close it to do the selection. So what's the difference? If what did I take? A, C. Oh, when I don't do anything else, but the selection was made automatically because there is only one ACO. Or, I don't know if you guys hear that, but I need to tap out of it now or make a selection, double click to make a selection. It's just what you prefer, how you prefer to work with drop downs, that's all.
There's some nice options for the user interface there.
Yeah, and again, I'm just building on what you already have. What does this? Multi-selection true. Okay, now you can have multiple selections from your drop down, and you can retrieve multiple selections at once. You can say, where do I want my widget? Normally, if you don't see anything, it comes underneath your normally it's just like this, but if you do it the other way, then it comes over your form object, basically. And another thing here is you have that selection button at the bottom if you want that. Just set it to true. Or you can say, I want a different separator. Default it is a comma, but if you want a different width for your drop down, you can do that too. Normally it takes the shape of your object that you start from, the width of this object that you start from. If you want the checkboxes, same thing. You just say, okay, I want checkboxes. Let's just set it to true. How is that? If you want column headers, same thing. You say show the headers, and the header needs to be that text. And then for the autocomplete, same thing. You call the widget, but you say now, what I'm going to do is autocomplete with auto select one. That's it. And then finally, I have here when you use a complete list box to do a selection. That's a little bit more in the sense that here you need to first of all, it's the same. This part is the same as what you would have for the regular widget, except for that I now adjust the size of the widget, of course. You say, I want the widget window to be this wide and this high. I want a multi-selection checkbox. Yes, okay. But I'm adding more things now, and this basically constructs the list box for you that you make the selection from. So you give it the column headers, you give it the column widths, basically everything that you want to, how do you want to see that list box to make the selection? That's what you enter here. The window title and all that kind of stuff. And then also what comes back is this is the collection.
Seems like it would be interesting to make the options a class of their own so that you can you can
But,
initialize these things.
So my goal with this is this. What I'm presenting today is basically, I think, the last functional thing that I'm going to change on this thing, but it's still V19 binary even. Now making it project, that's a small thing that just exported. I already tested that works too. Now the next step then is go to V20 and then integrate classes into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be typically useful to do that, right?
Yep.
So basically here is where you say, that's what I was about to say, that where you say, what do you want to return from that selection? It is the last name in that list box. But it can be any column in that list box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, as Adam said in the chat, it makes your lists nice and consistent, even though they have they're feature rich, with the different options like the checkboxes or the nice quick search facility in there. Yeah, our users were struggling with long lists and windows with bad type ahead. They only allow you one character or something to type ahead in Windows, and so all of a sudden everything must have quick search and multi-select and that kind of thing.
Actually, what you do here, basically, your filter, of course, in the regular widget where you only have one list that you're going to show, it doesn't make any sense. But here, this filter can be multiple columns. So what do I mean by that? Let me load that big object again. Okay, so you see in call people filter, I push first name, last name, username, address, city, state, zip. So whenever you, damn it. Yeah, that's what I lost it. whenever you type something in the filter, it actually looks in all those columns what is appropriate for your filter. So let's say I type in 4.3 or 2. Yeah, this is a bad example because this only goes to the address part or the house number. But if you find anything that would make sense, it is basically what it has done now. It has filtered down this 96,000 list of addresses to 7 addresses, looking for this filter in every single column that I put in the filter collection. Right? So it's not only filtering on address, it has looked for those characters in all the columns.
Try oak. Try typing in oak.
Again?
Try typing in oak, O-A-K. See what that'll
You
demonstrate.
what?
O-A-K.
Yeah, if you
Oh,
type,
A.
yeah.
No, so it's
Oops.
O-A-K.
Yeah. There you go. You
Now
can
it's
see
up.
that in multiple features now. You got, yeah. Twin Oaks, Burr Oak. Yeah, it's all over the place.
So,
Yeah, searching multiple columns.
so it's basically it searched the columns that you set up in that collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it does.
Cool.
So that was mainly it, yes. One more thing. Of course, it's always handy if you can actually see, and especially if you decide to store your list in your database with those 2 methods that I just said, what the object actually looks like. So you can just export all the lists, and that puts this file on your desktop. Okay, it's here. And it's really just one big object. And this object is the layout that you see here in the Word document. And then one more nifty thing, and then I'm gonna stop this demo. When you're adding lists or objects to your items, so a new list item, this guy, and I say new item attribute object, and I double click on my object, I can paste an object in. So what I'm doing really. So basically, this is one of those report setups that I talked about you earlier. So I just put it on the clipboard. And I go back to my thing and I say paste object. It replaces whatever is there, so it doesn't add, right? So basically, here is a whole object that I had in the other JSON file. So working or attaching objects that you might already have to add as functionality to your items is just basically a copy paste away.
Cool.
One more thing. Then I really stop. Okay. I already showed, this is a bad thing. I already showed you that you can add collections too, right? But I'm gonna now damn it. So this was just a simple collection of singular values. And if you do this and you double click, what was that? Now you can start entering collections of objects, right? So this is your collection. It only has an empty object in there now, but I can continue, can add attribute 1, and that's text.
Right.
Attribute 2, and that's a number. And attribute 3, that's a date. Okay, and I can say add this to a collection, but I can also say, again, attribute 4. And this is an object, and now the whole thing starts again. You know
Nice.
where I'm going with,
Yeah, you can.
with this, right? So you can continue building, and it always gives you back the string, the stringify of the object that you built to the previous level. And what you ultimately show here is that stringify. And then when you end up back at your lowest level, that's what you see here, right? So up to 2 days ago, I really thought, okay, I can really create any type of object with this now, but not completely too, because to create really any type of object, what I need to do, and I can show it here. That is in this simple collection. What I need to do is basically also have a type column here. So you can say this collection value is of type text or type date, of type Boolean, or of type object.
Yeah, it's hard to know
And
otherwise, right? Yeah.
then you have the full circle. But right now I have no use case for that. So I think you have already enough options at this point.
Very many options. Yeah, it's a nice feature to be able to drill into a large object like that within the interface. Yeah.
To the point that I was actually considering basically this portion of it, the object editor itself, making that a separate component.
Of course. Yeah, naturally that would
and then you basically have your object tools editor from Apergiti from years ago, if you still remember that.
Yeah.
But it is for the objects then.
Cool. Anybody have any questions for Bruno? This stage. Definitely it always gives ideas for different ways to go about interface development. And yeah, it's you pack a lot of features into each of your components and deliveries. I think
Yeah,
it's
this is something that was on and off from 18 until, let's say, 2024. And then I say, okay, now I need to finish this or I will never do it. And that's where we are now.
Dougie said, do you have a system that you can show where this level of complexity is implemented? So an interface that you could show where, outside of the example, more of a real
With
world.
this,
Yeah.
with this list, no. But what gave the idea to this list? Yes.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So let me fire up.
I'm just really trying to envisage the use case.
The use case, yeah. And that's why that's the difficult. Unless you have that functionality, you're never going to use that use case because you don't know that you have a tool like that to steer whatever it is that your method is doing. And
We
I
have
try to give
very complex list structures.
yeah.
A lot of the time with integrations that we do with retail platforms. And they have a lot of metadata in them that tells you what you've got to do with it. So we're used to using them and manipulating them and processing them, but I've never had to build anything like that to actually give to anyone else. But I can see it could be an enhancement to, it could be provided as a way of data to provide people with more access to information about an API that you're publishing so that they have all of the valid options, for instance.
Nice structure for an API.
Oh.
Because we pretty much, a lot of the systems we have, we basically have something that builds mostly just two option, key pair value lists, and they're all stored in storage so that they're all accessible. So the object as one object, but nowhere near as complex as this. This is very advanced.
No, this also comes from my, how should I say, I always liked to develop data-driven stuff. Now, what is the data in this case? That is the object behind your list, right? Just like, what do I mean with, if you look at that widget, what I showed you, you present an object to the widget, but that object that you present has different attributes. And depending on the attribute, the widget does different things or behaves differently. So basically, at the end of the day, the only thing that you need to do to use the widget is create an object, right? So the same thing you can do with behind any list item. You can put one, in this case, you can put 100 attributes behind it, which are all objects or whatever you want. But even if you only put one attribute behind it, which is an object, that gives you so much power to steer what you can do if you select that list item.
For me, the biggest thing is to give it a collection of records, right? And then when I go and I select a record, then I have access to all the attributes of that record. And I can say, okay, well, these certain things go in these input objects. So for example, if I pick a if I bring up a person list and I say, okay, I want this person, and it puts in the full name into one field, and in another input object, I want the address, and it just automatically puts that in there. And I can have all the attributes of that full record available to me rather than just um, a label key pair.
Mhm.
Yeah. Could be possible. Because just like I return that 5-level deep attribute into the list item, you could actually do the same thing with your
Absolutely.
collection.
You
Yeah.
provided the example of just passing in a collection, and
Yeah.
all a group of records is a collection, an entity
Yeah.
selection. So
Yeah. That example actually started from a collection.
yeah,
It was a JSON text which was turned into a collection that
yeah.
wrote the list box. Now to answer your question, use case, right? Okay, the use case where like I said, this is the old table-based list, where basically the lists don't reside in the 4D list object, but in the table, and where we added to every, so basically this is the list, looking for a specific list, worksheet, and every list item here is basically a report, right? Where the setup for the report is in this JSON text file. So basically the only thing that we need to do, and I was hoping that I could show you that, but I don't think. So it is rather difficult to maintain that setup in the text file, right? So we built a user interface that actually creates this setup text file, and then we store it in this list. So basically to run the report, we just have to pull that object out of the list, and the report will run automatically. And what does this thing have? Basically, so this is what it is. If you look at, it is not an organized. Oh, but this has basically everything that you need for your report, like your report headers, your report footers, all your report columns, all the formulas that are involved in your report, and not only 4D-like formulas, but also Excel-like formulas, all your styles that you're using in your report and all that kind of stuff. That's basically all in this, and that's the use case. So we built a report engine that works off a setup document, and currently we store that in that text field that's connected to the list item.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Any more questions? Ricardo, I have a question for you. Of course, AI based.
Yes, I was wondering here. Well, good.
I
Good.
no, yeah, but I'm looking at it from a different angle, basically.
Mhm.
I mean, I consider this component just as a tool that you have in your development team. It allows you to create lists and menus, right?
Mhm.
Now, if you still remember, kind of remember my presentation from 2016 about the listbox framework, that's just another tool to basically, and a part of that job is already done, to basically have a framework that allows you to come up with any type of listbox in your application, where I look as an output form of a specific type of listbox and a data browser as a specific type of output form, right? So I go super every time that I see that. Now, the goal is just like I configure the widget with an object here, is to configure all of those list boxes also with an object.
Mhm.
Okay. And that goes up to the moment you double click on your output form to go to an input form. I can initially present you with an input form with all the objects that you want there underneath each other, save that form, and then you just have to shift them around in the form editor and you have your input form, right?
Mhm.
Your input form. Now, my idea is once you have that framework ready, and feel free to say, Bruno, you're wrong about what I'm going to say now. From what I understand, what you're doing, you are training AI to use 4D.
Sorta. I'm training.
Sorta.
Well, 4D right now is working on things to do AI and 4D together, right?
Yeah.
My suggestion was a little bit different. Is like I use AI to change your own system, right? So I
Okay.
describe the rules of your own system to the AI so the AI can respond to that. Let's say, for example, in your case, that you need to create a structure, right? So you need to create a structure. It could be dynamic or not, but you could ask AI to create that structure for you based on
Yeah.
the input that you ask them to do it, right?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
But yeah. But
Yep.
the way I was going around in my head, so now I have those two tools that we have that listing and we have that listbox component thing, right? What about if I now train an AI to use that, and then I build one feature when I build a listbox that says, okay, I want a listbox, this and this table are involved, these fields are involved,
Yep.
and now spit me out a prompt
Yep.
that gives me the object back that I need to run that listbox.
Yep. You can totally do that. That's exactly what I was referring to. And
I think that's what you meant by using your own system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would go and describe to the LLM how you operate, those are my fields. This is the values that I put in each field. This is the object that I want to receive. And if I give you the input, and the input as well can be structured, but because you can think about the input in two ways. It can be an input from a user, which then is absolutely open, right? In my example that I gave, the guy said, oh, open the invoice for client X, right?
Yeah.
And then all the thing. But then you can think as the input as well as behind the scenes, something that you also control, that you are going to give the input exactly to the LLM to give you the result that you want, right? And it can have a structure. When a user types, it might not have a structure, and the LLM is going to figure out. But you can have something that has a very strong structure that you ask the LLM and it sends back to you what you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, what I would want back from the AI is an object that
Exactly.
describes me a list box.
Yep.
And what would I then maybe do? Put that object in those lists that I just demoed,
Yep.
because I can attach an object to an item. And now I have basically in my list description
Yep.
everything that I need to. I have my menus, I have my drop down menus, I have my description of output forms, and everything is in there. I just have to say, okay, basically execute me that object, which would compose. So basically what you would do, the way I see it right now, is that you would put an, how do you call it? On your form, you would put a placeholder, it has a name, which escapes me, and you just say, feed that object in that placeholder, and the result would be a list box with all the dimensions and characteristics that you have in your setup that you had returned by your AI.
Yeah, you are automating. In fact, what you're doing is you already did the automation in terms of code to generate the menu and the drop down, right? So what you will be automating now is just the input of it, right? So it's like the creation of the object that will give you
the configuration of your list box, basically.
Exactly.
That would be what I would get back based on whatever I send it in the setup. When I produce the prompts for the AI, they give me an object back that constructs this type of list box.
Yeah, it's possible, my friend. Yeah, I think it would work very well.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Yeah, let me know if you need any help on that. I'll be glad to.
Yeah, I first need to basically I'm redoing that 2016 that 2016 component to more modern thing, and once I have that ready, then we might have a chat again.
Yep. Oh, excellent.
Very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of input values that could be assigned in such a recursive list like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's one of I like a lot the work that Bruno does, because it's a metadata type of work, right? So it's a data about data that transforms something, creates something automatically. So I love this concept of having the object, and from the object you kind of spawn like almost like a DNA sequence, right? And I have the DNA sequence, which is the object, and then from that I create an organism, which is what he's doing, right? And then in that process, I think, yeah, AI could automate a few things. Could even get to a point that it could give to a client, said, "Oh, I want to create a menu here," and the client will be able even to do it, right? But anyhow, so it's very interesting work, Bruno. I fully appreciate it.
Okay, so that was my part, guys.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Bruno did make the repository available in his GitHub account. I did put a link to that in the chat. The link is also on the 4DMethod post. Yeah, so if this gives you any if you have any questions after the fact, you can always ask directly on the forum, dedicated forum post. And yeah, I'm sure this gave us all some ideas, and certainly inspiring each time we see the extent of Bruno's development there in the interface. Coding the interface, it's like a multi-level coding of the interface, coding the coding of the interface. Yeah, so okay. Well, if Anybody else has any questions? Now would be the time to ask. Otherwise, just going to finish up here. So thanks again for a great demo, Bruno. Be interesting
Thank you.
to see if you can put together the AI and these components together. I think we're all looking for inspiration for how to leverage AI in our coding, and this looks like a nice way to really pack in functionality that the AI can easily work with because it's so structured. Yeah, as usual, any other questions, discussion, feedback, it's all great. Reach out to me, and let us know what we can do differently, better, and whatnot. Again, if you have any thoughts for your own demo, I see Pat there. It's about time we took a fresh look at cat base. But yeah, just let me know and we'll work you into the schedule. This is our group. We can set dates that work for us. And otherwise, always appreciate any extra help that you can offer by way of Patreon. So, yep, thank you, Bruno. Thank you to everyone at 4D for your support of the meetings, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Okay.
Everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brent.